Welcome back to the Destination Dream Job podcast. Today I have Grace Fabian. She is a career coach who helps passionate, high-performing leaders harness their superpowers to design a career they love. Through one-on-one coaching, group programs, and workshops, she guides them through transformative changes, both internal and external, that bring greater clarity, confidence, and fulfillment in work and life. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Heck yeah, thanks, Steph. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about a topic that you are really excited about, and that's whether you should stay or go when you're in a work position that you're not sure, if it's a fit anymore or if it's what you really want to do. So why do you think so many professionals struggle with deciding whether they should stay or whether they should leave their job?
Amazing question. And so there are numerous reasons, but first, I call this the clash question. I mean, you know the song, Should I Stay or Should I Go? And I was having so many sessions with people, and I was like, this is just the way my brain works. It turned it into a song. I'm humming it to myself. So it just became clear that this is a thing on a lot of people's minds. So why? There's a lot going on. I think we're seeing a shift where work is seen more as a source of fulfillment and purpose. So people are coming with a lot more exciting ideas of what work can be to the table. But then we're also seeing, I think coming out of COVID, a lot of kind of like lingering existential questions about how I show up in the world after the table was flipped. A lot of new opportunities and ways of being exposed themselves, but also people, we're saying, okay, what are things that I can be doing to make a bigger impact? I know here in the US, we got federal workers who are facing a lot of uncertainty, AI reshaping industries. And honestly, I think you probably see this too in your work. A lot of times we pick major parts of our career when we're super, super young, before our prefrontal cortexes have even developed. And we get to this point where we're older, we know ourselves better, we've had more experiences, and it's like, wait a minute, where am I? Is this what I really like? So a lot of reasons why, but it's culminating in this clash question.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point. We're so many of our teenagers are pressured, and I know I was, to like pick this one thing that you wanted to do for the rest of your life. It's like, how can you make that decision when you're like 17 or 18? I think that's wild.
It's super wild. And like, yes, the what do you want to be when you grow up question. And I know that you work with multi-passionates, right? So people who like, we can't, as human beings, fit ourselves into these boxes. And yet there comes a point, whether it's in your major or the first job that you have, it's like, this is my industry. This is my title. This is the type of company that I work for. And we start to kind of build our identity around these boxes. But humans just don't work like that. So sometimes you outgrow the box, or the box is never right for you, somebody else's box. So yeah, we just kind of look at all of that, and people come and they're like, I'm not so comfy where I am. But what do I do
Yeah.
about it?
For sure, exactly. And I think just normalizing the fact that you can make a change is also really great because so many times people are like, "Oh, well, I should just stay, like have a good job." But actually, like studies show the more like people who change jobs every 3 to 5 years make more money than people who don't change jobs.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's the you are making more money. Absolutely. And then there's even this piece of sometimes we don't, even if we have the same title or have been in the same job for a very long time, we are changing. The world is changing. So sometimes I feel like people don't give themselves enough credit for the changes that they're actually doing pretty organically. Like if you move through your life and your caretaker role changes, either you have children or you have to take care of an aging parent, your relationship with work, that changes. We've all had to adapt to new technology. I mean, I know I graduated college and didn't have a smartphone. I remember when Instagram first came out. So just by living, we are changing. So I like to remind people of that because it makes change a little less scary and more like you've been doing this your whole life in small ways, whether you've noticed it or not.
Hmm. Yeah, so what do you think are some like key signs that someone might experience when they think it's time to start evaluating whether it's the right time to leave a job?
Yeah, so I recently took all of my client intake forms, popped them into ChatGPT, and I was like, what are the top feeling words that are popping out for people? And it is stressed, trapped, stuck, and uncertain and overwhelmed. So it's this kind of cluster of like a feeling like you're almost like a caged animal, like you've like lost your agency and your choice and you're in a spot that maybe is no longer working for you. And then you're kind of, that's compounded by this sense of like overwhelm and uncertainty. So that feeling cluster where you kind of lose sight of the fact that you are a person who has agency, who has choice, that to me is the biggest sign. And if you feel that, once in a blue moon, like this isn't feeling so comfy, I think that's part of life. Like I really want to be clear. And I know that we agree on this. There's no perfect job out there. So feeling a little uncomfy, that's normal. But if it's chronic, where you've got that trapped, stuck, uncertain kind of thing compounding, and that's really, people say, it's a lot of Sunday scaries. It's a lot of, I feel dread when I wake up in the morning, total energy zap chronically. We got to talk. Like you got to do something, whether that's changing your relationship with where you currently are or talking about making a shift to get out of there and do something else, because that's not a way to live.
For sure. I think like, I worked in a place that was really toxic right before I got laid off. And I remember like I would shake on my way to work because like it was just so stressful. Like every day, there was a lot of mental health issues with the person that I worked with. And it was just like you never know what you were gonna get. And I was younger, and I didn't know what I know now. And so I think like, reaching out to a career coach could have absolutely like completely changed my life and outlook because I thought I had no options. I thought I was stuck where I was and I thought there was no other, like there was nothing else that I could do. And so that was, yeah, so it was really great to be able to see what I see now and be able to help other people do the same thing, I think is so important.
100%. And there's two things there that I'd love to just comment on. One is like the feeling or the thinking around being stuck. There's this cartoon that I love where it's like a guy, it's this, there's prison bars right in front of him. He can walk around them, but he believes that he is stuck. And it's so much that like our mindset really, really matters, but sometimes that can be hard to see for ourselves. And then the other piece that you said is around shaking. And I want to comment on that because I like to joke, I learned to drop below the neck like yesterday. We were not raised to tune in to the really clear indicators that we're getting in our bodies. We, through our education system, through a lot of what we're rewarded for, it's like the brain runs the game. So you can think like, I'm supposed to be, I should be this, why maybe something's wrong with me. But if you are shaking on your way to work every day, we have to look at that. That's really important. You deserve to
Yeah.
not be shaking every day doing the thing that you do to make money. So, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. How do you think that people can get clear on what their ideal career kind of looks like? They might be in a situation that's like not terrible, like maybe they're not shaking on the way to work, but it's still just, they're kind of like, going through the motions, but they're not sure what their ideal career could be.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's really a few things that we look at. So one, we do want to do that work of dropping below the neck and really looking at your emotions, your desires, your passions, the things that light you up, the things that drain you, and paying special attention to that. I'm going to get to, so if anyone's listening and it's like, what about my salary and benefits and titles and all that stuff? It's like, yay, thank you, rational brain. We're going to get to you in a second. But first, we got to check in with your emotions. So I do what's called it's very common, but a values identification exercise with all of my clients. But it's really looking at and mapping out what are the things that light you up. And that's not intellectually. I think that I should be fulfilled by helping people. I think that I should be fulfilled by being the top of my law firm, right? It's really, now let's look in work and outside of work. What are truly the things that are lighting you up? And then let's also look at the stuff that's really pissing you off too. What does that point to, right? Like I met with somebody yesterday and we really focused on the drains. And there was a lot in the way that he needed to show up in his job. And he happens to be a teacher, where the way that he was interacting with the kids and the way that he was interacting with his colleagues, it was a lot of him over-indexing and giving more than he was receiving. And so that's a really clear indicator okay, you're seeking one, maybe in yourself, there's an opportunity to set better boundaries. But two, let's look at what are the types of collaborative colleagues that you would like to be around? Where are there examples in your outside life or previous jobs? So we look at the emotional piece first and foremost. And I tell people, like, just hang on a sec. We will get to like what job is that in a minute. But I'll pause there before I move through because I know you similarly do this kind of work with folks. So do you do values and that kind of emotional check-in stuff as well?
I do a little bit. I don't go as deep as, some people. So I refer out for the deeper work because I just don't do that kind of stuff. But I do like agree with you a lot, right? Sometimes when we can see the job that we have is what we want, we just need to change our mindset or set more boundaries around, the position that we're currently in. And so I think about that a lot, right, with my clients in terms of how could we make this position more sustainable if you're generally happy with it. And then if you can't do that, if you experiment on that and that doesn't work, then you can always know it's time to make a change.
Yeah, you nailed it. And so I'm gonna like go back one step. The sustainability piece is numero uno. Like even you said, what are the things if someone's like not quite at that shaking phase, but even before then, still regardless, like we got to make the current sustainable for a few reasons. One, just to feel a little bit better right now. But we want to make sure that if a change is going to happen, that we're not jumping out of the frying pan, a bad situation, into the fire, a worse situation.
Hmm.
Um, and we also sometimes, if we don't kind of calm ourselves down and get out of that place of discomfort, we miss the opportunity to really learn from what is going on here and potentially embrace it. So that sustainability piece, I just had to jump in. That is like, that's numero uno. Before
Hmm.
before we even get into the where what might we be going, what's going on exactly where we are right now. And what data can we gather from that?
Yeah, absolutely. That definitely helps clear things up. And, sometimes people are like, oh, actually, this is what I want to do. But then, sometimes, it's the wrong team or the wrong company. And there's always ways to, make those changes to make it, a little bit more comfortable for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, you wouldn't believe, or maybe you would believe the amount of people who come to me and they're like, desk flip, throw laptop out window, like I got to get the hell out of here. Here are all my ideas about where I want to go. And we hang out in the sustainability place. And either the position starts to work for them. A lot of times it's about it's easier said than done, but setting firm boundaries, giving yourself compassion for not giving 110% or trying to every single other thing, and then also looking outside of work. A lot of people who start volunteering start actually leaning into their arts, start protecting dinner time with family, start to make the doctor's appointments and do the home kind of improvements to light up their life a little bit more and they go, oh man, the job wasn't the thing. And man, they've saved themselves so much. Big changes are hard. They've saved themselves a lot of challenge, right? By just
Mhm.
making small little intentional changes exactly where you are. So we go from kind of like chuck laptop out window. I want to go move to a farm and, harvest crops for the rest of my days to like, no, 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 we're actually good here. This supports me. They're good people. Little tweaks. We start
Mhm.
there.
Yeah, that's great. If someone feels like, they've done these little tweaks and it's still not lining up, then, what are those next steps you walk them through to help them make that transition?
Yeah, so we really look at like, because yes, at a certain point, and either it's this is a misalignment for me as a person, or sometimes, like you mentioned, I'm in a toxic work environment and I have to get out. Or the third that we're seeing is, layoffs. Like you don't have a choice. Like it's not should I stay or should I go? And I'm thinking and I'm journaling and I'm having these deep conversations. It's like you're gone. So now what? So the now what question, we answer that really in three ways. We talked about the values, which is really getting clear on the emotional piece of all this deep down. What is important to you and why? And what is the impact of all of that in your life? So getting really clear on that piece. And then we get clear on, I call it like the real world considerations, your career opportunity checklist. Like for the vast majority of us, we work to make money. We're doing budgeting. It's like money can be this weird thing. It can be very emotional. So what is enough? How much would you actually like to be pulling in? We look at total comp package because there are things like benefits and perks and equity and all of that universe of what is the financial stuff coming your way. We look at things like even like your day to day. Do you want to be remote? Do you want to be in person? What is your location? So that's the like, if we're doing the emotion deep, 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 we got to then look at material world checklist stuff. And then the third piece has to do with feasibility. We can have the best laid plans of what do I want and what do I need, but we have to look at your skills and your background and your experience and say, okay, given all of that, what's the you that you're bringing to the table? And I walk people through many exercises to extract that because it can be kind of intense. Just be like, so Steph, tell me about your strengths. Go. So we look at everything from what you believe your strengths are. We do assessments. We ask your friends and family. We also look at previous performance reviews to really get a picture of what you're bringing to the table. So between those three things, the emotional piece, the depth, the what is actually important to you about this, the real world considerations, and then the real feasibility stuff, your skills and experience, we can narrow that down into a few focus areas. And this is where I used to do this manually, but man, ChatGPT has changed the game for me. It is a really good partner to us in all of this. So this is one of my favorite moments, and I know my clients love it too. It's the big reveal. It's like, okay, and so what? Where do I go? And so we put all that in and we look at focus areas. I've got 2 meetings later today to review those reports and say, all right, which of these are resonating? What's the feasibility? What's the next steps to get after them?
That's great. And I think when you do it in that way, you can see a lot more options out there, right? Because you're talking about values and skills. And a lot of people are like, oh, I mean, I worked with someone who's like, I've been in, she's a dental assistant and she's like, that's the only thing I can do because that's all I'm trained in. And I'm like, well, actually, you work with people, you work with admin, you do all the scheduling, you talk to all the customers. I was like, you could pretty much go into customer service, administration, executive assistant, office management. And she was
Yes.
like, what? She didn't even clue into that. And so when you really focus on the skills and strengths, you can see a lot more, I mean, at least we can see more opportunities for people. And so if you're listening and feel stuck, just know that there are options out there and people like, Grace and myself can help you figure out what those options are.
Yes, yes, especially because I have a lot of people who come to me, they're like, I'm a go-getter, I'm a self-starter. You give me a goal, I'll get after it. But this not knowing what the target is really uncomfortable for people. And so there is a bit of, we have to slow down first. We're going to be a little patient. Usually takes about a month to mine all of this really important information, but like we will get you there. This is why they're called transferable skills because you bring your little backpack of stuff with you and you can deploy it in many different ways. And we're talking about just different jobs, and a lot of people I know it's like, could I do something more entrepreneurial if I want to get out of corporate? Could I switch from full-time to part-time and do more volunteer passion work? Can I balance? Like all of these are just levers. And we can use all that information to get clear on focus areas so that you're like that badass part of you that's like, give me the goal, I'm gonna get after it. Like there are ways to do that. It just, gotta trust the process.
Yeah, I'm curious, do you have a story of like someone who made a really drastic transition
Ooh.
successfully?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Which one is the question? I
I'm
just
putting you on the spot.
I just caught up with her recently. She sent me this incredibly sweet email. This is a year and a half later, and she went to a big networking event, which for many people, networking like just the word makes you sweat. So I know that's a thing that we worked through together, and she went to this networking event. I won't spoil it. Let's talk about the pivot first. So she was doing project management within interior design, and let's talk about values. One of her values was beauty. And I remember when she brought it to our session, she was like, is that even allowed to be a value? And I'm like, absolutely. Well, let's talk about what that means to you. Through our discussions, we discover she's done floral arrangements for people's weddings before, and it is the highlight of her year every single year. But can I go for that? Is that even a viable revenue stream? And she didn't do an immediate jump into it because we have to face these things again responsibly for your finances, for your life, for your nervous system. But spoiler alert, she's now running that floral business full time, which is freaking incredible. And so she reached out to me. It's amazing to see her work on social media. She's gaining traction. She was written up in a local newspaper about her business. So it's very exciting to see. And then also she's using the skills of networking. She went to an event and normally it's like you go, and she wanted to kind of scuttle away as quickly as possible, but she talked with the organizer and offered to do floral arrangements for their next event. That was a yes, got the gig, and that turned into another gig. So anyway, yeah, big shift, but they can happen. And I want to point out that value of beauty. It's like, what is this? What does this mean? And really slowing down and saying, yeah, what is important about that to you and what's the impact on your life? And then looking at the real world considerations of, is this going to be able to support you financially? And then finally, the piece of what are the skills and experiences that you're bringing to the table? Oh, you've done this successfully. This isn't like a pie in the sky thing. That combination helped to move towards that as the ultimate goal.
That's such a great story. I love really drastic career changes, and that one's pretty drastic. So I love that and
Yeah.
successful. And I think that's really cool. It just goes to show that, you know, we put ourselves in the boxes, right? Like it's not, we can do whatever we want. We can make these decisions, we can take risks, but it's often like society or ourselves that put ourselves in these boxes that we have to, you know, have a 9 to 5 job and, you know, do all this stuff. And so I think that, you know, that story in itself just shows that you can, you know, do really whatever you want and do it successfully.
Yes, absolutely. And there's a piece too. I love this quote, you choose your hard. It's not like, and she gallivanted off into the sunset and was happy for all of her days. I mean, we've both left corporate to do our own thing. I love it. It energizes the shit out of me. I'm so lucky to do this work. And like, yeah, I was futzing around with QuickBooks trying to get my invoicing in order. And like, we spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, and I'm like, I love LinkedIn. We met because of LinkedIn. Thank you, LinkedIn. And also like, my gosh, I'm spending so much time on LinkedIn. Again, you
Yes.
choose your hard. And so there's no path. And again, we look at that too from the emotionality perspective. If we were just looking at real world considerations and like the feasibility, we miss the part that's like going to be the fuel for the track. Like if you're
Mhm.
motivated by beauty, that's going to help you to say on the day, when clients are a little bit lower, or you're not sure when the next gig is coming from, or you're like kind of feeling fish out of water and in your reality, you can stay grounded in these things that are even deeper than the kind of tactics. And so that's why it's super, super important not just to identify the focus areas, but once you've landed or made that pivot, to keep that momentum.
Absolutely. If someone wants to, if someone wants to work with you or they want to learn more about you, where can they find you?
Amazing. So we talked about this at the top. I'm going to tell you now, but also it depends on when this goes live. My name is changing. So I'm just going to say I am Grace Fabian, Fabian, Vigent, Vigeant. My website's gracevigent.com for now. It will be Grace Fabian Coaching soon. And you can find me on LinkedIn and on Instagram at the same name. And with all clients, like I got to get to know you first. I got to get to know who you are. What are your goals? What it might take to get there? So I have a free exploration call with every client. There's no selling on it. There's no, this is what coaching is. Get to know you. And that link is on all those platforms if you're interested in doing that.
Awesome. That's great. I encourage you guys to take advantage of that. You know, Grace has shared some really amazing things today. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will include those links in the show notes.
Amazing. Thank you, Steph.